She awoke to a start, her heart pounding in her chest. Her long white hair damp with sweat as the remnants of the nightmare clung to her mind like the mist outside her window. The room was dark, save for the faint light of the moon shining through the wooden shutters. She shivered, pulling the thin blanket tight around her small frame, but it did little to chase away the cold that seemed to settle into her bones. The nightmares had been coming more frequently, each one more terrifying than the last, filled with images of shadowy figures and darkness that seemed to swallow everything in its path. A heavy burden for a 12-year-old child. Her door creaked open, and the familiar silhouette of her father appeared in the doorway. "Ikosa?" he called softly. "I'm here, Papa," she whispered, her voice trembling. He crossed the room in a few strides, sitting on the edge of her bed and gathering her in his arms. "Another bad dream?" he asked, stroking her hair gently. Ikosa nodded, pressing her face against his chest. "It was so real, Papa. I saw terrible things." Her father sighed, holding her tighter. "They're just dreams, my love. Nothing more. The mist can play tricks on our mind, but they can't hurt you." But even as he said his words, Ikosa could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Still, she knew the mists were strange, filled with secrets that even the oldest villagers did not fully understand. As the days, weeks, and years passed, Ikosa tried to shake off the lingering dread, but the nightmares persisted. She kept busy during the day, helping her father in his shop and tending to the needs of the villagers. Yet, she found herself drawn to the edge of the village more and more, where the mists were thickest and the trees loomed like dark sentinels. It was here she first encountered the lost ones. They would stumble out of the fog, eyes wide with fear, their bodies battered and bruised. Adventurers who had ventured into the mists and lost their way, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. The villagers would care for them, offer them food and shelter, but it was Ikosa who seemed to have a special touch. Her small hands were gentle, but tended to their wounds, and as she did, the pain would lessen, the fever would break, and the fear in their eyes would fade. It wasn't long before rumors reached ears beyond Brazilian. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the trees, a stranger arrived in the village. He was tall and handsome, with a silver tongue and a charming smile. He introduced himself as Elias, a wandering scholar in search of knowledge. He spoke kindly to Ikosa and her father, praising her gifts and offering to teach her more about her powers. Ikosa's father welcomed him politely, but there was something about the man that made Ikosa feel uneasy. Still, Elias was kind, and he spoke to her in a way that made her feel special. "You have a rare power, child," Elias told her one day, his eyes gleaming. "A gift that could change the world of Albion if nurtured properly. I can teach you to use it, how to make it stronger." Ikosa glanced at her father, who watched Elias with a wary eye. "I'm happy to help the people here," she said softly, "but I don't want to leave my home." "Of course not," Elias replied, his smile widening. "But imagine what you could do if you learned to control your power to the full extent. You could heal not just one person at a time, girl, but entire villages." His words were tempting, but something in his gaze made Ikosa shiver. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Elias than he let on. Days later, as the mist thickened, 2 more strangers arrived in Brazilian. They were no traders or wandering scholars, but knights. Their armor gleamed in the sun. The villagers whispered in awe, recognizing them as members of the Order of Light. Master Knight Artemis and his apprentice Evangeline had come following the same rumors that brought others. But the order is wise. It knew that such gifts could not be mere coincidence, and that power of that nature comes only from one source. The knights were cautious but respectful, seeking only to launch an inquiry into the tales they had heard. From speaking to townsfolk, they quickly learned of the strange man spending time with the gifted child and grew concerned. A local alchemist was quick to share their concerns, and the knights grew even more determined in their investigation. Over the next few nights, the warriors of the light watched Elias closely. They noticed that he would disappear into the mist after sunset, returning only when the first light of dawn touched the village. One evening, Evangeline followed him into the Brazilian thicket, discovering a hidden clearing where the mysterious man seemed to be performing a dark ritual on a helpless creature, draining it of its energy and killing it in the process. The truth was now clear. Elias was no mere traveler or scholar. He was a heretic of the Morgana cult, a follower of the dark magic who sought to corrupt this girl's gift for his own twisted purpose, or worse, drain her of her powers entirely. Evangeline hesitated to engage, instead reporting what he'd seen to his master. Artemis knew that the order must act quickly. If the girl was in fact the prophet as predicted, time would be of the essence, and failure was not an option. The next evening, the knights confronted Elias in the village square while he was trying to lure the young lady away. The air was thick with tension, and Ikosa felt her heart race as she watched from the shadows. "We know who you are," Artemis said, his voice firm. "You've deceived these people for long enough." Elias's charming smile faltered, and for the first time, Ikosa saw the truth in his eyes. He was no scholar, but a fanatic drawn by the power he had sensed in her. The confrontation was swift. Artemis and Evangeline, empowered by the light, were also skilled fighters, and the heretic's dark magic was no match for their combined strength. In the end, Elias was slain, his true nature revealed to the horrified villagers. As the heretic was dragged away, Ikosa felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. The danger had passed, but the world she had known was changed forever. Master Artemis knelt before her, his expression gentle. "You have a great gift, young one that can bring light to this dark world, but it must be protected." He glanced at Evangeline, who nodded in agreement. Ikosa didn't fully understand what they meant, but she knew that her life in Brazilian could never be the same. She understood her presence in this town put others in danger. They would never stop looking for her. She could no longer stay in her home. She took a deep breath and peered around one last time at the town she grew up in, full of people who loved her, knowing she may never see their faces again. On the road out, she stopped briefly to allow the moment to sink in. The mist clinging to the dark forest she was about to traverse, but now, as she looked into their depths, she no longer felt fear. She had seen the darkness, and she knew that with the light, she could keep it at bay.